On December 19, 1928, a search plane flying low over the Colorado River spotted something strange. Floating in a calm eddy, miles deep inside the Grand Canyon, was a boat. It wasn't smashed against the rocks. It wasn't capsized. It was floating upright, perfectly intact. When rescuers finally reached it, they found it fully loaded. Inside, there were supplies for weeks. There was a camera containing developed film. There was a diary with the final entry written just days before. There was even a half-eaten meal. Everything was there, except the people who owned it. This is the story of Glen and Bessie Hyde, newlyweds who went into the Grand Canyon to set a world record and became its most famous ghosts. To understand why they vanished, you have to understand who they were. In 1928, Glen Hyde was 29 years old. He was handsome, experienced with rivers, and incredibly ambitious. His wife, Bessie, was 22. She was quiet, artsy, and unlike Glen, she had almost no experience with whitewater rafting. But they had a plan. They weren't just going on a honeymoon, they were going on a publicity tour. Glen wanted to set a speed record for traveling the length of the Grand Canyon, and he wanted Bessie to be famous as the first woman in history to run the canyon. Their vessel was a homemade wooden scow they named Rain in the Face. It was essentially a heavy wooden box with massive sweep oars. It didn't steer like a modern raft. You had to wrestle it through the water. And crucially, they didn't bring life jackets. Glen thought they were unnecessary. He believed if you fell out, you just swam back to the boat. That was mistake number one. By mid-November, they had been on the river for nearly a month. They were exhausted. On November 15th, they hiked out of the canyon at the south rim to resupply. They met Emery Kolb, a famous canyon photographer who lived on the edge. Kolb took the last known photo of the couple. Kolb later said that Bessie seemed hesitant. She looked at her shoes while Glen talked about the records they were going to break. Some witnesses claimed she said, "I wonder if I shall ever wear pretty shoes again." But Glen was adamant. They were going back down. On November 18th, they pushed off from the bank. Adolf Sutro, a passenger who had joined them for a short leg of the trip, got off. He watched them drift around a bend in the river. And that was the last time anyone ever saw Glen and Bessie Hyde alive. When they didn't arrive at their destination in December, Glen's father launched a massive search. The Army sent planes. Native American trackers scoured the rim. And then they found the boat. It was at mile 237. This is where the mystery deepens. The boat wasn't stuck in a rapid. It was floating in calm water. The tow line, the rope used to tie the boat to shore, was trailing in the water as if it had snagged on something. Bessie's diary lay on the seat. The atmosphere was eerie. It looked like they had just stepped off for a moment. If they had hit a rapid and capsized, the supplies would be gone. The boat would be battered. But the boat was fine. So, where were they? The official theory is simple. They hit a rapid, likely mile 232, now known as Honeymoon Rapid. Glen fell in. Bessie tried to save him, or vice versa. Without life jackets, the cold, heavy water took them down. The boat, being a heavy wooden box, simply floated through the rapid on its own and settled in the eddy downstream. But that's not the only theory. Decades passed. The legend of the Hydes grew. And then a strange rumor started circulating in the river community. There was a woman named Georgie Clark. She was a legendary river guide in the 1950s and 60s. Tough as nails, mysterious, and refused to talk about her past. After she died in 1992, friends went through her personal effects. They found a pistol. And in her private papers, they found the marriage certificate of Glen and Bessie Hyde. The theory is wild but compelling. Glen was abusive. The pressure of the trip broke them. Somewhere in the deep canyon, Bessie killed Glen. She hiked out alone, changed her name, and returned years later as Georgie Clark, the Queen of the River, conquering the very place that tried to destroy her. Is it true? Probably not. Georgie's bio doesn't perfectly align, and the marriage certificate was likely a copy she kept because she was fascinated by the story, just like everyone else. But the fact that people want to believe it tells you something. We don't like unexplained endings. The most likely truth is the simplest one. The Colorado River is indifferent. It doesn't care about your records, your honeymoon, or your life jackets. Glen and Bessie Hyde underestimated the river. One slip, one cold wave, and they were gone. Their boat, the rain in the face, sat on the bank for years, slowly rotting away, a wooden tombstone for a honeymoon that never ended. Somewhere in the sediment of the Grand Canyon, they are still there. Together.